listening to the GM Shuffle with Michael Lombardi, presented by DraftKings and VSiN. Here is Femi Abebefe.
Welcome to another edition of the GM Shuffle with Michael Lombardi, presented by DraftKings and VSiN. I'm your host, Femi Abebefe. As always, make sure to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get your podcasts. Our producer, Elliot Bowman, with us on the ones and twos. We are officially on the DraftKings network. Big news from DK Nation earlier this week, but also big news in the NFL, Michael Lombardi. Schedule 2023 regular season's out. Yesterday was like Christmas morning for me. I couldn't sleep. I woke up 3:45 West Coast time. I was ready to go with this schedule. We got it yesterday evening. How excited are you now that we finally have dates attached to these games?
Not only do we have dates, we have odds, we have point spreads. I mean, it's interesting how quickly they came up with the point spreads. But for me, I love knowing who you're going to play. I look at it a lot differently than I think most people do. I think the worst thing, second only to mock drafts, are this exercise that most beat writers do, which is predicting the one-loss record based on how the schedule has come out. There can't be a dumber exercise in all of sports. Seriously, this guy, they're going to lose this one, win that one. I mean, has anybody ever gone back and checked those predictions?
Absolutely not.
Come on. It's ridiculous, right? So when you look at the schedule, you're in the league. You don't look at the schedule in terms of how we're going to fare. You look at the schedule in terms of the first thing you look for is what team do we have to practice a lot of in camp and OTA days. See, the beautiful thing about the schedule coming out early, Femi, is that it gives teams and coaches a chance to prepare for the games that you can't prepare for a week. For example, New England opens up with Philadelphia. Mm-hmm. Okay? You can't get ready for Philly. If you've never played Philly before in this six-back offense, you got no chance to get ready for them on a 6-day week. It's really hard. It's why they've outscored people so much in the first half. It's why they scored 207 points in the second quarter. The speed of the game's too much for you. So it gives you a chance to take a step back and say, okay, we're going to prepare for Philly with our OTA days. We'll have some time here. And then at training camp, we'll prepare for it because it's their opener. So it gives them a lot of time. So that's the first thing you look at is, what team do I not know that's unique enough that I have to practice against?
Yeah, no, I think that's a really, really good point there. And that's something that I looked at yesterday. I was like, oh, New England can have all summer to prepare for that Philadelphia offense, which a lot of teams have been trying to prepare for after what they did last season here. Were you surprised? Because I was surprised when I saw yesterday morning that the league chose the Detroit Lions. They had a chance to pick the Buffalo Bills, the Cincinnati Bengals. We could have gone with the rematch of the Super Bowl, Eagles at Chiefs at Arrowhead, but they picked Dan Campbell, restore the roar, Detroit Lions, to kick off the season with the Kansas City Chiefs on opening night.
I think to me, I was shocked by it. I really was, because as good as they finished in the season and the way they ended, are we sure they're really going to be good enough? I mean, are we sure that they're not the team that gave up 350 yards to Carolina in week 16, 17 of the season? Are we sure they're not the team that got shut out in New England? I mean, I think they're good. I mean, obviously they've improved. They've gone from good. Are they great? It's going to be a hard game for Detroit. I think it's a great opportunity for Detroit because, here they go into Arrowhead, a place that's foreign to them. Again, a team that they're going to have to get ready for. And Kansas City's going to have to spend some time getting ready for Detroit. That, this could go sideways quickly on Detroit if they don't understand it. The crowd, the emotion, all those things. It's a hard game to play when they're raising banners.
Yeah, that's a very hard game to play. And I just thought that the league kind of got a little cute with this matchup. And I get it. Detroit's a team that a lot of people are buzzing about this year. They're the favorites when you look at the odds to win the NFC North. And everybody kind of is rooting for Detroit after Hard Knocks last season. But there were so many other kind of tried and true games that you could have gone to. I mean, Cincinnati and Kansas City, which that game is going to be played on New Year's Eve. We're going to have to wait all the way till week 17 to get that one there. But like the Burrowhead kind of trash talk and those two teams back-to-back AFC title games, I feel like that's like one of the burgeoning rivalries in the NFL that we could have kicked the season off, because who doesn't love to kick things off with a little animosity? Those two teams hate each other. Yeah. I would have loved to see that game in the opener on NBC.
Yeah, I would have too, but I think, to me, look, let's face it, I think every game in the NFL can be compelling. I think this is what makes the league so fun. And Detroit is the state of Michigan is one of the best states in football. I mean, we haven't really, it's been a sleeping giant for years in Detroit. And so for them to come out and kind of have an opportunity to get center stage, it gives us a chance to really see if they're prepared. I think it puts a lot of pressure on Detroit. Are they ready to do this? Are they ready to take that giant step? Are they not mature enough to handle it? I think those are the things that are going to really get addressed rather quickly. You got to turn up the heat fairly significantly because you just can't put your toe in the water when you walk into Arrowhead.
I mean, you talk about being on the big stage. How about Monday Night Football, Week 1 on Broadway, New York City? Well, it's the Meadowlands, but I get it. But if they're the New York Jets and Aaron Rodgers hosting the Buffalo Bills, boy, the NFL schedule makers, they said, hey, Jets, if you guys are anything, we're going to find out real quick when you look at those first 5-6 weeks of the New York Jets schedule here. And it starts off against the team that's been reigning over the AFC East the last few years here, the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, I mean, look, you weren't surprised by that. I'm surprised was that, Aaron Rodgers is in on Sunday Night Football to start it off,
Yeah.
I mean, I would have thought maybe he would have been on Sunday Night Football, but look,
you had to put America's team on there.
Yeah, I mean, when you break down the schedule, I mean, this is, I just think to me, the Jets are going to be a really interesting story. How about the way I thought what was interesting was the Bills? The Bills opened up in that game. I think they opened a 3.5-point favorite.
3-point
and it
favorite.
got bet down immediately. It got bet down to 1.5. So I thought it should have opened up kind of like at a 1.5. I was surprised it was that much, and it got bet down immediately. So I think the Jets are being taken a little bit, they are being taken seriously, but I'm not sure they're being taken as seriously by the book. Like, I don't see the gap between Buffalo and the Jets with Rodgers now on the team. I don't see this gap as being that significant.
Yeah, no, I saw the same thing that you saw when the game was announced yesterday because it was announced before the full 272 games. And I looked at one of the sports books and they had Buffalo 3-point favorites. And I just tweeted, I was like, oh, like that seems a little much for me. And it wasn't surprising to see that one go down. It went all the way down to pick 'em in some spots, but I believe it's now Bills 1.5. I didn't place any bets. I'm probably not going to place any bets prior to like August or September here unless something really jumps out to me. But that one definitely stood out. So I don't mind people betting it.
I mean, the other thing you look at scheduling is what people, when they go through that exercise of how many we're going to win, how many we're going to lose, is you don't know the injury.
Yeah.
You don't know the game that the team played the week before, what the effect of that game is on the team. And so what you're constantly doing when you look at the schedule is you want to play a team after they played Baltimore or Pittsburgh where it's a physical game and there's a lot of wear and tear. The injury report might not reflect it, but that's kind of a good situation to be in. And this whole strength of schedule, to me, is a little bit – look, the AFC we know is really good. I mean, with all the quarterbacks in the AFC, we know it. So, if you're an AFC team like the Patriots, I think they have the hardest schedule. They were a 4 seed, and they have one of the hardest schedules because it's hard. Yeah. I mean, it's hard to face quarterbacks. And then they play the NFC East with Dak and Hurts, so it's hard. You're getting good quarterback. Everything about the schedule is what quarterback are you playing. And if you don't know that, if the opening of the game, say Matthew Stafford's not healthy or, say Ryan Tannehill's not playing for Tennessee, that changes everything in terms of how to play that team.
The New York Jets also going to be playing on Black Friday, the first ever Black Friday game in NFL history. They'll be hosting my guy Tua and the Dolphins in the Meadowlands. They are short favorites in that game.
Your guy, I love how you take ownership of it. I love it. I love that.
I'll be honest. I like Tua. I think he's going to be a productive player. I'm crossing my fingers that he can stay healthy. That is a big concern for him going forward here. But we want to see him healthy because that team, I think, can be a factor in the AFC. How about the Super Bowl rematch? We don't get it opening night. We do get it November 20th, Monday Night Football. I know ESPN's doing cartwheels for that one. Eagles at the Chiefs at Arrowhead Stadium.
Yeah, that'll be a fun game. I mean, all those are, anytime you get two really good it's about quarterbacks, right? Mm-hmm. It's about it's Mahomes versus Burrow. It's Mahomes versus Hurts. It's about the offensive quarterbacks, I mean, with Thanksgiving, we get the Packers and the Lions. I mean, maybe we'll see Jordan Love play at a higher level. But I think to me, I don't get as caught up with there's like certain marquee games because – would we have thought Jacksonville would have been a marquee team at the end of the year last year, the way they were playing? No. Or the Giants? No. So it's like, to me, you have to let things kind of play out. but it's always about the quarterback, right? It's always about what quarterback faces what another quarterback. I mean, we got the Commanders and Sam Howell against the Cowboys on Thanksgiving Day. How's that going to work out? We don't know will Sam Howell be the starter come Thanksgiving? Yeah. Who knows? There's so much uncertainty. That's what makes the schedule tricky to kind of indicate and predict.
One thing I did like is that I was looking at the schedule and I was curious about the lead up to that Eagles-Chiefs game, what was going to happen the week prior. Both teams will be coming off the bye week. So hopefully that they're healthy, they're good to go, they're in extra rest. We'll have a fun game on Monday Night Football between the Eagles and the Chiefs. You mentioned we don't know who's going to be playing the quarterback. San Francisco is the team that is glaring with that sign right now. Who's going to be at QB? Is it Purdy? Is it Darnold? Is it Lance? Is it to be named later? Well, taking
Lance
on the
is
Eagles.
Supposedly Lightyear. He's another Buzz Lightyear. Did you just see that quote today?
I did see that.
Did you see that Buzz Lightyear's quote? We got a Buzz Lightyear quote. I knew it was coming.
I thought we had to wait a little bit. You were on it.
Yeah.
We got it this week.
No, I mean, I knew it was coming. Can we get an amen for that? I mean, we knew it was coming,
it was
coming. Light years. He's unbelievable. He looks like sensational. Oh, my God. I mean, we haven't played anybody, nor have we been in any drills, but he looks sensational.
Well, he's healed up from the finger injury. He was dealing with that heading into last season. Let
me ask you this question. Has Trey Lance not ever looked sensational until the games? I mean, think about that. Go back and research all the commentary that's come out of the Bay Area and tell me that what you've ever heard is doubts about Lance during practice. You've never heard any of that. He's sensational. All you hear is incredible, right? Until they get to the games, and then all of us, oh, shit, we're in trouble now.
Yeah.
At some point, just say nothing. Say nothing. Say nothing. You don't have to go to the extremes.
Well, silence is deafening, If they say nothing, then people are going to know that they don't really want him.
Yeah. Well, I know they don't, when they false bravado, I know it's a lie. It's a lie. It's like Salai saying, "Oh, we didn't sign Randall Cobb because, Aaron Rodgers did, we signed him because we want him." Oh yeah, Robert. Okay, great. So we're going to put Gabriel Davis on the bench, seriously. I mean, we're going to put Wilson on the bench, right? Okay, right. Yeah. Come on.
There was a big market out there for Randall Cobb post-draft.
Oh, huge market.
Huge market. We're going to get more into this schedule. We got international games. We have holiday games. The NFL's taken over all of our holidays. And, of course, week one games. We'll break it all down here on the GM Shuffle.
You're listening to the GM Shuffle with Michael Lombardi, presented by DraftKings and VSiN. Here is Femi Abebefe.
I'm always interested to see how the league breaks down the primetime games because I think that gives us a little bit of a peek into how the league thinks about these teams heading into the regular season. And we have 4 teams who have 6 primetime games, but this was also the first season, Michael, in a while to where we did not have to guarantee all 32 teams a primetime game. So there's 4 teams that also have 0. That's the Texans, the Falcons, the Cardinals, and the Colts. And those teams are all picking near the top of the draft, so that makes sense. But the 4 who have the 6, Kansas City Chiefs, defending Super Bowl champions, makes a lot of sense. Buffalo Bills, they're always a marquee team. Josh Allen, they score a lot of points. The Dallas Cowboys, America's team, big draw in terms of the ratings. And then you have your guy, Brandon Staley, also your guy, Kellen Moore, with the video games. 6 primetime games for the LA market. Chargers picking up the slack of the Rams, I believe, here.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be interesting to see. I think, to me, did they not just look at the win totals and say, look, we're not just, the Cardinals have, when they went through this, right, the lowest win totals, the Cardinals, the Rams, are one of the few, the Texans. They just basically looked at the win totals and said that they're not, and usually we always find a team that comes from the bottom of that pack that because of the schedule softness, they can make a move upward. So I actually think it's good. I mean, why should a team that's playing crappy should get on national? Why do we have to be subjected to watch the Arizona Cardinals?
Yeah, no.
What have they done to if they play better at the year and they're a compelling story, they can flex them in. But at some point, don't you have to earn the right to get on it? I'm surprised they didn't put Indy on though, because Indy with Richardson as the quarterback, and, I'm not saying he's going to be a dynamic player early in his career because you know how I feel about that, but I'm surprised they didn't put Indy on just because great home crowd there. Mm-hmm. They always play certain teams. I mean, they beat Kansas City at home last year. The quarterback might be fun to watch depending on where they are. Mm-hmm. I can't imagine Jim Irsay's not calling the league saying, like, what the fuck?
Yeah. No, and how did Tampa get 2 primetime games?
I don't know. I have no idea. That's a shocker. Tampa's one of the lowest win totals in the league, too.
Yeah, it's a small market team with no quarterback.
What's either going to be Kyle Trask or Baker Mayfield. No Tom Brady. I don't know how they quite did that. That's an interesting one. Like, I would have had them instead of the Colts. Not that I think the Colts are going to be great, but the Colts are better than when it went south. Has anybody seen Jeff Saturday in the park lately? I haven't heard from him too much. Have you?
I have not heard from him. I miss him on Get Up. He was good on Get Up.
Is he not doing it anymore?
He hasn't been up. Maybe he'll be back for the football season. I don't know, but I do miss him. I miss that whole situation. And now the Colts, they're going to be well ran and they'll be back to normal. But that was a fun second half of the season with the Colts and your boy Saturday in the parks and what they were providing us from a content standpoint. There were 7 teams with 5 primetime games, both New York teams, Jets and the Giants. The Packers, no Aaron Rodgers, still 5 primetime games. Vikings won their division. Eagles, Niners, that makes sense. How about that? The silver and black Las Vegas Raiders, 5 primetime games, 3 of which will be at home at Allegiant Stadium in Vegas.
Well, I mean, I think the Raiders are, look, if you go back and watch their year last year, they were in every game. I mean, they were a compelling story in every game. Now, they couldn't close games out, and I think really the only game 2 games that they didn't play well in, New Orleans and the last Kansas City game. Other than that, they had chances to win in the fourth quarter. So, will they be better? Garoppolo's a good story. They've improved their team a little bit defensively. Maybe Tom Brady's going to be a minority owner of the team. Adam Schefter and Seth Wickersham reported that today. So, that would be really an interesting dynamic in terms of what his relationship would be and how much he would be involved. I know, Tom has always kind of wanted, it's like Peyton never really wanted to get into the front office. I do think Tom would enjoy that. I think he's kind of like Ozzie Newsome in that sense that he does see the game in a team-building mindset.
No, I think that'd be a really cool storyline. And they once again host the New England Patriots. We'll see if it's as dramatic as last year's game with New England and the Las Vegas Raiders here. But I think Tom Brady joining the Raiders, it adds a little bit credibility to the silver and black. You're not saying that they don't have any, but it adds at least championship credibility with what Brady has been able to do, and it can help out what they're doing here in this turnaround with the Vegas Raiders. So I think it's an interesting matchup. And also, I mean, the Raiders have a massive, massive national fan base as well. So you see why they put them on primetime. If I'm one owner that should be mad, it's Mike Brown of the Cincinnati Bengals. I'm calling the league saying, what the hell? We got one of the most popular players in the league in Joe Burrow, only 4 primetime games? Like, what's going on? I mean, I get we're Cincinnati.
I don't think Mike Brown's calling. I think to me, really the league, if you were to ask any team, they would rather play every game Sunday at 1. I mean, so the less you mess with us, the better off they are. Like, no one's going to complain. Like, because no one's like your boy Embiid who's more worried about being on that, winning the MVP than winning a championship. Like, most teams are like, just get me Sunday at 1 and we'll get in the playoffs and I want to win a title. That's what most teams would love. All the travel. I mean, Seattle's got to travel 31,000 miles. Mm-hmm. I mean, think about that. I mean, all the travel, like, for example, I think the Giants open up the season. Week 2, they're in Arizona, then they play Thursday night in San Francisco. So, that gives them a chance, which I think is everybody looks at that and says, oh, this is a hard schedule for the Giants. I think this is the greatest thing that could happen to the Giants because you're going to stay out in the desert. Mm-hmm. You got a chance to bond your team, right? You got a chance to bond your team with your team. Everybody thinks training camp is the bonding element of team building. It's not, because we got 90 players or 80 players that come, and half of them are going to get cut. So who are we bonding with? Right? But when you can bond during the season, when you can kind of get that, especially early in the year, where you could just get everybody to focus on football like the Giants do, I think that's an incredible advantage. I really do. And people look at their schedule and say, oh, they're on the road so much. Yeah. Well, they finish the season at home a lot with their weather, which their team should be able to know and handle. At some point, you got to go on the road. You'd rather do it early than late. That's what happened to Philly last year. Philly was on the road, after the Denver game, they had never had to get another airplane again.
Yeah, but Philly also, I mean, they played bad quarterbacks as well last year. The Giants have to play some pretty decent ones on those road games, which could make things difficult for the Giants. So you talked about their schedule at Arizona, at San Francisco. They're likely going to stay out on the West Coast, come home for Seattle, at the Miami Dolphins, at the Buffalo Bills. Then you get 2 home games against the Commanders and the Jets, and then 3 straight road games out to Vegas, then at Dallas, and at the Commanders. So those first 11 weeks, it could be rather tricky there for the New York Giants. They're Big Blue. How about the holiday slate, though? Because the NFL, of course, is going to take over all of our holidays here, and we have to go ahead and do good deeds now so that we can so we can make sure that we can be able to watch these games during the holiday season and not get our heads severed off. But the Thanksgiving slate, all NFC teams, which is interesting because we've talked about how the AFC is so much better than the NFC, but the NFC is dominating Thanksgiving. Packers, Lions, the early game, Commanders, Cowboys, the afternoon one, and then you get 49ers and Seahawks in primetime.
Yeah, I mean, but they're all, I think whenever you get those rivalry games where teams know each other, they tend to be really close. They tend to be better, in terms of the teams know one another. And then on a short week, one of the things you really want on a Thursday night game like these is you want to know your opponent. You don't want to play a foreign opponent, somebody you've never played before. That's always the hard thing, because what you have to do then is you've got to spend May game planning for that team. And you spend all of May game planning. Say the Cowboys, they put the Cowboys and the Patriots on Thanksgiving, right? And the Patriots play the Cowboys once every 4 years.
Yeah.
So now you got a new offensive coordinator in McCarthy. You got Dan Quinn. So you're going to have to study that, how you handle that. That's not easy to do on Sunday night, Monday, Tuesday, and flying in there Wednesday. So when the league gives you these kind of common opponents that you played a lot and know a lot, that gives you a better advantage. The other thing you do when you look at the schedule, I think, besides practicing in the OTAs and in training camp, is the other thing you look at the schedule is you look at how many new coordinators you have to face. Like how many new guys, like, okay, if you're a Philly, you got to sit there and say, okay, what am I studying on Bieniemy? Is he going to run Andy's West Coast version of the offense, or is he going to run something else? There's not a lot of data. You got to study the tape. And with all the new coordinators in the league, you got to kind of study them and have a portfolio of who they are and kind of work your way through that and spend a lot of May on that subject, because when you get into the week, you kind of want to have a background on the coach. Remember, if you're coaching, studying the coaches is as important as studying the personnel.
No, I think that's a really good point, especially on those short weeks there. We see that sometimes these first-year head coaches tend to struggle on the short weeks because they're figuring out just the process of how to condense a full week into just 2.5, 3 days to get ready for that game there. So I think
because they don't spend time. They don't spend time, and they don't take their OTA days. They don't take their mini camp days. They don't take the beginning of training camp to kind of work that way in. If you don't, there's certain things that if you don't work on, if you want to run power, let's say, as an example, if you want to be a power team, which is double teams and kick down, you got to practice that every day. And you got to work on that every day. You just can't put that in and say, okay, we're going to be proficient at it. You might hit one, but it's a hard play to execute. So you got to practice that a lot. So everything you do as a head coach is about time and money. How much time do I invest in this to get the reward that I need out of it? That's really the job you have. If you're Robert Saleh, that's the job you have. How do I maximize my time that I have to prepare for what I'm facing? Whether it's clearly in my own division, but then outside. How much time am I going to decide to spend on Philadelphia, Dallas, who I don't know, Washington, who I don't know with the new offense, and then the Giants? I think that's really how you have to break it down.
Yeah, it's a good thing they have Aaron Rodgers in there doing the offseason program versus what he was doing in Green Bay.
And Randall Cobb to run slot routes. Yeah, run Randall. Yeah, absolutely.
He's practically the receivers coach, let's be honest. Christmas Day, though, is going to be a lot of fun. A triple header is the NFL once again sending a nice gift to the NBA. They're taking over Christmas. Raiders at the Chiefs Christmas morning. Giants, Eagles will renew their pleasantries in the afternoon. And then the Ravens and the Niners, which is a really interesting primetime game here out West Coast.
Yeah, I get Lamar Jackson on Christmas Day. I mean, a Super Bowl, another revisit a Super Bowl here. So, look, they could put any 3 teams on Christmas Day. We're all going to watch them. I mean, we're going to sit there in food coma, and it's just, to me, it's the greatest thing. We don't have to watch a meaningless NBA game and wonder about whether the guys are going to play or not. We're going to get really good competitive action. And I mean, this Black Friday game now is going to go through the roof. I mean, I think I really was impressed with. I thought Amazon got a good schedule this year. I don't know if you looked at it, but I thought they got a good schedule.
But I saw that we're not getting an LA Amazon game until December, so Toscano's might have to be put off until December time.
But Al has lunch. At halftime. He has tablecloths and a chair. He's right there. It's like when Clemenza went into that restaurant in Godfather 1 and he sat down in the back room. That's Al at halftime.
We got him a good schedule this year. Let's go overseas. When we come back, we'll also break down week 1 in the 2023 NFL regular season. Schedule's out, baby. We love it.
You're listening to the GM Shuffle with Michael Lombardi, presented by DraftKings and VSiN. Here is Femi Abebefe.
Let's go overseas, shall we? The NFL's International Series features 5 games, one of them in London at Wembley Stadium, 2 of them at Tottenham, where the Tottenham Hotspurs play the English Premier League team. I know, Michael, you're dialed in on the EPL.
Completely like that, yeah. I mean, completely, yeah. They kind of sublet whenever the Sixers aren't playing. I'm just in there on Tottenham.
Tottenham, we're getting it done. Harry Kane, shout out to him. And then we get 2 more games in Germany, but this time the 2 games will be in Frankfurt. Last year, Seahawks and Buccaneers was over in Munich. Now we'll get 2 games in Frankfurt. I thought it was really interesting that we got the back-to-back Jacksonville games overseas. Like, how do you think from a preparation standpoint that's going to kind of factor into what we see play out on the field here? Because Jacksonville, I'm assuming, requested to get those back-to-back games, first hosting the Falcons, and then they'll be taking on the Bills later on at Tottenham.
Well, I think this was not just a happenstance. This was premeditated, because I think what they want to be able to do is see if it can work. Could we put a team in London, an NFL team in London, when we go to 34 teams? And could this work? Could they go over? And so the whole idea is, say Jacksonville moves to London, and I'm not suggesting that, but say they did. So Jacksonville goes to London, they play 2 games there, they come back to America, they play 2 games in America, they go back to London, for 2 more, and they kind of do that, and that's kind of how they handle it. So I think this is kind of a test run. And look, Jacksonville, they're going to redo their stadium, and which needs to be redone. Tremendously, it needs to be redone. So through that, where are they going to play? There's no other place to play in Jacksonville that could handle this crowd. So maybe they take a year and play in London and see if that works. Now, the home base will be in Jacksonville. Everything will be done in Jacksonville, player tryouts, workouts, all that stuff. But the games will be played over there, and the players that are in the games will have residency in London. So I think this is a test run. I really do, because we are going to get, in the next 8 years, we are going to get an international game. If the Washington Commanders sells for $6.05 billion, and this league decides to add 2 more teams of international value, it's going to be huge. I mean, it's going to be incredible. And if we go to 34 teams, which I think we will because of this international game and how popular the game is in Germany, and it's seemingly so popular in London, why not?
Man, 34 teams. I'm not sure how they would do that from a scheduling standpoint and a divisional standpoint. Well, remember, you obviously have lopsided divisions.
Right, but remember, the other part that adds to this too a little bit here is the networks no longer have, Fox doesn't have the NFC, and CBS doesn't have the AFC.
Yep.
Like you bid back in the day, Fox always paid more for the NFC because of the markets. That's over with now. Everybody, you get a bill from the league. Either you want to pay for games or you don't want to pay for games. And so this is kind of what's in the pot. So it isn't like, okay, we'll put one team, maybe they'll have a 5 division, maybe they'll redo it. I don't know. But I think to me, that's where this is going. And it should go, because the game is going to become an international game. And we can fly fairly easily. London's what, a 5-hour flight? I mean, Buffalo goes over there and plays. They'll leave, whether they leave Friday morning or they leave Thursday night. They go over there, they spend, get acclimated. It's no different than going to the West Coast if you're Buffalo. Got to go to Seattle. It's probably maybe a half hour, 40 minutes longer. Time difference is longer, so that affects you.
Yeah. I mean, that's been the hidden secret for about a decade or so now. The NFL eyeing London, specifically the Jacksonville Jaguars and Shad Khan and that ownership group there, because I mean they have a team. We're joking about the EPL in the last segment. The Khans own Fulham, which is an English Premier League team, so they have business overseas as well. So they're definitely interested in doing that.
Yeah, I agree, Femi. And I think when you look at this, right, so when the Raiders were in Oakland, the value of their franchise was not very good, even though the Raiders have a national brand. The move to Las Vegas made the Raiders a wealthy franchise. And that because they got out of a depressed market and they got into a stadium. I mean, Mark Davis hit the lottery, and he had enough courage to move to Las Vegas. The Chargers are doing fine in Los Angeles, but the Chargers they would have done better if they moved to Vegas. I mean, everybody thought that they were screwing the Raiders out of moving to Los Angeles. Well, Vegas ended up being a better venue anyway. I mean, Jacksonville either is going to get a lot of concessions in the stadium and all that, because let's face it, it's a very, very small market. Mm-hmm. And London is a huge market, and it would mean a ton of the value of the franchise would go way up.
Yeah, I mean, London's one of the biggest markets worldwide, globally. You talk about London or Tokyo. I mean, they would never take a team to Tokyo. That might be a stretch a little bit too far.
Yeah, I couldn't see Tokyo or Mexico City. I couldn't see those two. Because, we don't have a Mexico City game this year, and that's probably a good thing because of that altitude at 10,000 feet. Mm-hmm. That's a hard thing to get ready for.
Well, I think they're going to go back. I think it's just because they're doing the stadium renovations for that one, but I think they'll probably go back in a year or so to Mexico City. My guess is that we'll probably get like a Cowboy game down there or a Raider game down there. We've seen the Niners and the Cardinals down there as well. So Mexico City definitely has a big fan base for the NFL and appetite for professional football. Another game in Tottenham, Ravens and the Titans. Ravens 5.5-point favorites. That game will be played October 15th. And then the Frankfurt, Germany games, we get Colts, Patriots, but before that, Dolphins and the Chiefs. And the NFL, in my opinion, does a great job by and large with scheduling things out here. But I was a little disappointed to see Dolphins Chiefs overseas versus seeing Tyreek Hill return to Arrowhead Stadium.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, I think this will be an incredible crowd, and the German fans are incredible. And I mean, for the Chiefs to give up a home game in Arrowhead, just like the Patriots, I mean, that's a huge concession by their owners to do that, and they're putting the effect of the brand ahead of their own self-interest. So give them credit. I mean, look, it's a November 5th game. I don't know what the weather's going to be like in Frankfurt. It'd probably be nicer than it would be in Kansas City in November, so it probably benefits. I thought Miami's schedule was interesting. They opened the season in Los Angeles, and then they come back to New England. Usually, you got to, one of the other things you look at is the heat, where we're going to play in heat. Do we play in Miami in September? Do we play in Tampa in September? Do we play in Jacksonville? The other places, New Orleans is hot, but they're indoors, right? Tennessee's another one of those hard places to play, although Tennessee's not a very good home opening team.
Mm-mm. And I was a little disappointed by the league doing the Miami-Buffalo thing, because last year I thought it was actually a cool dynamic of having Bills go play in Miami in September when it's scorching hot and it's 125% humidity, and then you had Miami go to Buffalo in December when it was snowing. Now you have Miami going to Buffalo in October 1st, and then you have the Bills going to Miami late in the season when it's cooled down a little bit there on South Beach. So they avoided the extreme weathers with both instances.
Yeah, exactly. I think to me, it's fair. If you make me play in the heat, you got to make me play in the cold, right? Yeah. I think you got to go both ways.
Yeah, no, I thought it was interesting because that was when I was looking at the Cowboys schedule. I was like, all right, when's the Buffalo game? Because I was concerned about. They have to travel to Buffalo. Is it going to be late in the year? Is it early? Of course, it's late in the year, so it's probably going to be crappy weather, and we'll see how Dallas survives that one. Hopefully it's not a snowstorm out there in Western New York. But while we have a little bit of time, I did want to hit on some of these Week 1 games because, as somebody who likes to dabble into the wagering of the NFL, it just brought an absolute smile to my face to see the lines going, the odds were moving, numbers were changing with week number 1, and we have some interesting games, 7 divisional games. We have 5 home underdogs with week number 1. We haven't talked a lot about my Dallas Cowboys and the New York Giants. The Cowboys, 3-point favorites, Sunday Night Football in the Meadowlands against Brian Daboll, Daniel Jones, and Big Blue. What do you make of that game as we renew the Cowboys-Giants Week 1 annual tradition?
I mean, I think it's awesome. I think it's great to get, you got 2 teams that were playoff teams last year for Sunday Night Football. I think you can't get better than that. And I think it probably was the right thing. Could you have put the Eagles, Patriots in that slot, knowing that Brady was going to be back? Mm-hmm. Might have been really compelling. But I think when you look over the 4 o'clock slate games, I mean, I think they picked the best one. And look, the Giants are going to have to, the Giants opened up last year in Tennessee and found a way to win that game in the second half. This is the Giants' schedule. When you look at it, like I mentioned, they got to, last year they got off to a really fast start. This year, it's going to be a harder start for them. So this is going to be a critical game for them. But look, the teams, you're comfortable playing against them. That's the one thing is you're going out there and it's like you don't know how to handle Mekhi Parsons. You know how good he is. You know what their team is. So when you could open up the season with a team that you're comfortable playing against, I think it's a lot easier.
Dolphins and the Chargers, I think, is a really sneaky, underrated afternoon game. Week number 1 there. Chargers 2.5-point favorites. The total in that game is 49.5. We're going to get Kellen Moore versus Vic Fangio. We get Brandon Staley, Mike McDaniel. The story writes itself. Herbert, Tua. I'm sure we'll be talking about that one post week 1.
Yeah, that could have been an interesting Sunday night game too. Yeah. Really, we had that didn't we have that last year on Sunday night?
Yeah, it got flexed in last year.
I get confused if it was Sunday or Thursday, but remember, and that's when the Miami just didn't play well down the stretch. So, yeah, I mean, look, all these games are going to be fun to watch. And the fact that we don't, I think I got to figure out the YouTube thing, right? YouTube now has the Sunday ticket, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Which is awesome.
Yeah, no, I think there's a cool little pro tip here. If you sign up before June 6th, you get $100 off of your Sunday ticket package. So make sure you get that done before June 6th. I got to remind myself.
I'm going to do it today.
To get that done.
Did you do it?
I haven't done it yet. It's on my list of things to do before June 6th at least. But I will definitely be doing it to make sure, because YouTube has this cool mosaic mode. I've seen people show it on Twitter or on YouTube or so, where you can do the 4 box within one screen. So you can watch 4 games on one screen, and if you have a 2 or 3 TV setup, you can get a full Sunday slate with just 2 TVs or 3 TVs or what have you. So you can we're going to keep our eyes on everything with this YouTube mosaic mode. I don't think that they're a sponsor here, but maybe they want to shout out to us. Yeah. So
I got to look into that.
Get the YouTube up and running, because that's where Sunday Ticket is this upcoming season here. The rookie quarterbacks, Bryce Young, Carolina, CJ Stroud, Houston, they're starting off on the road. Not easy games here. Young is going to be in Atlanta taking on the Falcons. Stroud, welcome to the NFL. You're taking on the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah, a tough game to go into Baltimore. But look, you got to play somewhere, right? You can't. You're not going to hide it. I think Bryce Young, he's played in Atlanta Stadium. He's played how many championships in there? So that'll be comfortable for him. And one thing about these kids that look. Ohio State, you go into Michigan, you think that's an easy venue, right? So I don't think they're going to be overwhelmed by the venue or the opening game or who they're playing. I really don't. I think we're past that. They've played a lot of big games. I think whether they're ready to play is a different story, whether the game's too big for them.
Yeah, no, I think it's going to be really interesting to see how those guys come out of the gates there. Bryce Young, the Panthers have some interesting games early on where if they can either get off to a really great start or they can get off to a shaky start there, just depending on which way the ball bounces. We're going to get into more of these week 1 games on the other side. And also, Michael, I want you to think about this while we take this break. Who's going to be your pick for Survivor week number 1? Early thoughts on that here. This is the GM Shuffle.
You're listening to the GM Shuffle with Michael Lombardi, presented by DraftKings and VSiN. Here is Femi Abebefe.
I don't know if you're as excited as this game, Michael, as I am. Packers at the Bears. Oh, buddy, my clients will be on display. Jordan Love, Justin Fields.
Have you signed a letter of intent with Jordan Love to represent him? I didn't know you took him on. I thought he was still dangling in the wind looking for it. Did you take him on too?
I'm taking on Jordan Love, and I need to sign some exclusive papers with Justin Fields because there's too many people that are trying to steal him away from me.
Well, your boy Danny O over there says he's going to be in the conversation.
He's trying hard to steal him away from me, man. He's talking MVP convo. It's gone too far.
I mean, this guy's amazing. He can just say stuff and with no evidence. I mean, there's no evidence behind any of it. I mean, it's all projection. 91 sacks, 29 fumbles. That doesn't even deter him. It doesn't even deter him. The guy. But look, it's what it is. We'll see. I don't get the one thing I don't get is why the Bears are so heavily favored over the Packers. I don't know what the line is in this game, Elliot, but I mean. 2.5. Yep. But to me, for the win totals and for the conference, for the division, the Packers are not bad defensively, in spite of what Big Daddy might say.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're better than the Bears defensively. And the Bears have a lot of moving parts on that offense. It's going to take. Now, I understand. Buzz Lightyear's he's also in Chicago too. Buzz is busy now. I know Tom Hanks has a new book, but man, he's busy all over the place. No, Tom Hanks played the cowboy. Tom Hanks played Woody, right? No,
I think it was
what's his
Tim
face?
Tim Allen.
Tim Allen.
Yeah,
played,
Tim Allen played Buzz.
Tim Allen's busy as shit now. I mean, he's busy as hell.
The Packers, I don't know if you've told Big Daddy this or not, but I hope Big Daddy's ready for the playoffs, man. Because you look at that schedule, it can go one of two ways, and I tweeted this yesterday. I could see 13-4. I could see 4-13, and everything else in between.
God.
I'm telling you, Michael. I'm telling you, if you take a look at where we just pulled the schedule up right now, they don't play a playoff team from last season until week number 8. Now, obviously, those things change from year to year.
They're not a playoff team. They're not a playoff team.
If the quarterback is good, why can't they make it in that weak division?
I mean, they had Aaron Rodgers and they couldn't make it last year. They're too young. I think they're hard. I think, to me, if I'm betting them, they start 2 road games, which I think will be hard. Mm-hmm. I think it's going to take them a little while to get better. I mean, could I see them winning 7 games? Yeah, I think, but the second half of the season will be more effective for them than the first half because there's a lot of moving parts. When you're this young as a football team, as the Packers are, it's hard. Now, look, they do have the advantage because, let's face it, they're in the NFC.
Yep.
Right? They're in the NFC. They don't play it. They open the season up with 2 guys that are not, based on QBR, not very highly rated. They go to the Saints. I mean, it's not that difficult of a schedule. I agree with you, but they're not that good of a team at the quarterback. Now, if he plays well, I think they could be the story, right? Could he play well enough to kind of turn them around? A little bit like Trevor Lawrence. As the year went on, Lawrence got better. Maybe that's the case.
Yeah, no, I think the schedule, it's out there in front of them. If they're good, they can really make some hay here. Now, if they're bad, of course, they're going to lose a lot of games.
Have you taken LaFleur in as a client too? I just want to know that.
No.
Oh, okay. I just want to make sure that. I want to ask you too before as we stay on this. Is Doc Rivers a client of yours too?
Absolutely not.
Okay, I'm just checking. No. I have to check your roster. I don't know. I want to see if
No. After what we've seen, way too many of Doc's movies to be able to take him on.
Oh,
as a
have
client.
You really?
Yeah,
that's shocking. What Doc is? Let me just give you what Doc 6-9 in Game 7s as we get ready for Game 7. But here's the most telling tale of Doc. I think that's so significant. He's 17-32 in closeout games. The 32 losses in closeout games sets an NBA record. Just keep that in mind.
So it sounds like you like Boston on Sunday, is what I'm hearing.
I don't know if I could trust Boston. I mean, Missoula's not a great. The Missoula's in that. I mean, it looks like Al Horford took over the coaching of the team to me last night. Didn't it look like that to you?
Yeah, I think that it's going to be the snatching the victory from the jaws of defeat, or snatching defeat from the jaws of victory, is what it might end up being on Sunday, because both of those coaches, it might be a disaster, a high pressure situation as well. But everybody, they don't want to hear us talk about basketball. They want to hear us talk about football. Bengals Browns, I think, is a really cool Week 1 game because we've talked about how Deshaun Watson, we don't really know what he's going to look like. Last year, awful. Prior to that, upper echelon quarterback. Now they host Cincinnati, who has been the class of that division here. Bengals now 2.5-point favorites.
Yeah, I mean, to me, though, I think the difference in the Browns will be Schwartz in the defense. I think that'll create some problems for the Bengals. And the Bengals will have to figure out how this is all going to operate and how they're going to handle it, and is their offensive line, as they've made the changes with Orlando Brown over there at left tackle and they moved Williams over to right, how that works out. I mean, I think these are nail-biter games. I really do. I think everybody's, you talked about Survivor. It's, I think it's Survivor. And I don't play Survivor, but I think in Survivor, you need to have ground rules, right?
Yep.
You need to have, ground rules. I think you should avoid but it's hard to have ground rules, but I think you should avoid rivalry games.
Mm-hmm.
As early in the season as you possibly, especially in divisional games, because it's so unpredictable and the teams know each other. I would say everybody's going to take Baltimore against the Texans, right? Yeah. Everybody's taking Baltimore in Survivor Week 1. I think that's fairly easy to say that, right? But Baltimore plays on Christmas Day. So you want to save them? That gets you to problems. But I think because of the Survivor, how it goes, you better take a lock. You better take an early lock. And I think, to me, you should stay away from those unpredictable ones like what everybody bet Indy last year and Jacksonville won the game.
My one rule in Survivor, and I only have one because it's hard to have too many rules because then you're going to end up with a week where you don't pick anybody. But my one rule is no division games week one. Like you said, the rivalry games, you just don't know. These division games, teams are prideful. They get up for these games. You have all summer. There's optimism heading into the season. Even if we all don't think a team's going to be good, they at least think they're going to be good. They're going to play hard in that week one game. So I'd avoid those division games. But I'll push back, though. I don't think it's going to be Baltimore because I think people are going to want to save Baltimore down the road because Baltimore's a good team. I think it's going to be Minnesota. I think that's going to be the team that everybody, because they're hosting Tampa, non-division game. They're at home and they're around a touchdown favorite. And I don't think people are going to want to save Minnesota because everybody. I mean, we all know it. They had a lot of luck last season.
I can see that.
You know, I think Minnesota's going to be the team that people want to get rid of and just say, all right, let me use them. Hopefully they win and we move on.
What do you think about? Would you consider Washington in week one?
That's the one I kind of had
against
circled.
the Cardinals.
That's the one I kind of had circled. Yeah. That's
because you're not going to use Washington until later in the year anyway because you're not sure. But it's really a play against Arizona, right? I mean, that would be the play against because they don't. You know, Murray's not going to play quarterback. That they're not going to. They're going to have a hard time blocking that defensive front. They're on the road. You know, by this time the Commanders should have been sold, right? So, I would consider that one. I wouldn't consider. You know, the Rams, Seattle. I might consider Seattle, but might want to use them later. You know, I think the Vikings, Commanders, and the Ravens are the three I think that are going to be the most interesting topics.
I think the Vikings will be the most popular one. I do think the Commanders will be either number 2 or number 3. Seattle, I mean, that's another division game. I would be scared to death to use that one. And I don't see anybody using any of the primetime games. Those are too closely spread. Kansas City as well.
How about Philly? How about Philly versus the Patriots?
I mean, I wouldn't do it. I could see some people doing it, but I think you'd want to. And also, too, for the people out here who play Survivor at Circa, the bonus of saving those Super Bowl participants, people might avoid using Eagles that early. They might wait till it's a dire situation because they want to keep the $1 million bonus alive. So I don't think they'll use Philly in that one. Because like Philly and KC, last year's Super Bowl participants, I think they're going to avoid those ones. So I could see Baltimore.
I would say, go ahead.
I could see Baltimore, Washington, like you said, and also Minnesota. Maybe people use Jacksonville against Indianapolis, but we saw how that worked in reverse a couple years ago.
I would say this. I would take a sure thing. You know, like last year, people took the 49ers against the Bears as a sure thing. That didn't work. But the weather kind of, I think, messed that up as much as anything. So I think this notion of saving teams, you know, hurts you because if you don't get to week 2, what are you saving them for?
For next year. Because there's no rebuy. Once you're out, you're out. So you can't save them for anything else. But the only I guess issue I'd have with Washington is that you're putting your Survivor life in the hands of a quarterback who's played one game.
But the Cardinals,
that's scary.
The Cardinals are underdogs in every game with a win total of 4.5. I mean, so the one of the things about Survivor is you got to play against bad teams, right?
Yeah.
And you got to play teams that play bad teams that aren't in their division because you can only use those once.
So early in the season, would you then try to just pick on the Cardinals and pick whoever team that they're facing?
I mean, new coach, right? New coach, you know, not a very good team, no quarterback. Yeah, I mean, I'm all in on that. I'm with you a little bit on the Bucs too. Although, you know, I think Todd Bowles is a really good defensive coach, and I just think that ball could bounce funny from Minnesota. Yeah. So I would be a little worried about that because Minnesota, they lived in Ireland for the whole year. I mean, Jesus Christ, they can't get luckier than them.
Yeah, they're still looking up how the hell they were able to win that many close games and win 13 games with a negative point differential. Think about that. It wouldn't shock me if the ball bounced against them. We got some cool little betting observations from our friends at VSiN here. And you talked about how the Cardinals are underdogs in every game with a win total of 4.5. How about San Francisco's win total dropping from 11.5 to 10.5 after the schedule came out?
Yeah, that's interesting. I would have not thought that. I've got to kind of go through that. That was interesting. I thought the Bucs being only favored in one game and yet getting 2 national television games is another one.
Just makes zero sense. Zero sense for whatsoever. I don't know what the hell the league was thinking doing that one because that was like who wants to watch this team unless you're a Bucks fan? Who like nobody wants to watch them. It's Baker Mayfield or Kyle Trask. Maybe Kyle Trask is good. Hopefully he is, because if we have to watch them, we at least need some good quarterback play to make it entertaining. Cincinnati favored in 15 of 17 games. The only 2 games are not favored at the Chiefs, at the Niners. Win total 11.5.
Yeah, and yet the Niners win total is at 10.5. Think about that.
Well, we have more faith in Joe Burrow versus whoever the hell the Niners are starting at quarterback.
Yeah, I think that's the thing is the quarterback, right? But Lance is looking good. I mean, he's light years ahead of where he was at any point. Nobody's looked better than Lance right now. So don't worry about it. Everything's going to be fine. What
do you think of New Orleans? Win total 9.5, favored in 10 games. One of the easier schedules playing in that NFC South.
I would say, I think they're a lock to go over on their title. I think they're really good.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting. We're going to break down the schedule more on Monday as well, whatever we didn't hit on today. But this was a lot of fun, Michael Lombardi. We got the schedule out.
Thanks,
we got
Femi.
games.
Yeah,
we got
it was
lines.
great.
A lot of fun. Thank you to our producer, Elliot Bowman. Thank you to you, Michael. Thank you to all the listeners and the viewers. Make sure to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get your podcast. And we'll see you guys on Monday here on the GM Shuffle.